In every generation, there are stories that dominate the headlines, stories that consume our screens, our fears, our hashtags. But behind those headlines lie others quieter, lonelier, lost to the noise of more sensational crimes. They're the forgotten cases, the ones with no documentaries, no viral outrage, no Netflix deals. Just silence and grief that never ends. This series isn't about the killers who became famous. It's about the victims who were forgotten. Because in murder, just like in justice, visibility is everything. Welcome to Murder Has Two Faces. Episode 1. Forgotten Crimes, Silent Victims. Tonight, we go back to small towns, empty highways, and cold morgues where questions still linger. Why do some murders vanish from memory? Who decides whose story gets told and whose gets buried? Our first story begins on a lonely Mississippi road. 1993, the high school girl disappears after a shift at the local diner. The police said she ran away. Her family said she didn't. And 30 years later, her name is barely remembered outside her town. Her name was Angela Freeman. Petal, Mississippi. September 10th, 1993, the kind of place where everyone knows your name and every story starts with, "You heard about?" Angela Freeman was just 19, a bright, warm girl with a shy smile and dreams bigger than her small town could hold. She worked nights at a diner, saved money, talked about becoming a nurse. Her last shift ended at 10 p.m. Witnesses said she left in her white Mazda RX-7, heading down Old Dixie Highway. That was the last time anyone saw her alive. When Angela didn't come home, her parents called police. The response was slow, almost indifferent. Probably ran away. One officer said, "Girls her age do that." But her mother knew. Mothers always do. 3 days later, her car was found near the Leaf River. Keys still in the ignition, purse on the seat, blood on the door, and a single hair, hers, stuck to cracked windshield. No body, no footprints, no answers. Over the years, rumors spread like weeds that she had a secret boyfriend, that she'd gotten mixed up with the wrong crowd, that she was pregnant, that she left willingly. But none of them stuck. Then came something darker. Locals whisper about a man, a tow truck driver known for helping stranded women late at night. His name was never officially released, but everyone in town knew who he was. He'd been questioned once, then never again. Static sound, quick cut to tense background tone. By the late 1990s, the file was closed. Missing, presumed dead. No follow-up, no arrests, no justice. Angela's parents still live in the same small house on a quiet street in Petal. Her room remains untouched. On the night she disappeared, her mother said she woke up at 2:13 a.m. to the sound of car door slamming. Then silence. That silence never left. Today, most people in Petal barely remember her name. But one retired deputy once said something chilling. If Angela Freeman had been from a richer town, or a different color, she'd have had a whole task force. Instead, she just disappeared. In murder, not every life gets the same attention. Some stories die twice, once in the act, and again in memory. Angela's case remains unsolved. Her parents still wait for a call that may never come. But she isn't the only one, because hundreds of miles away, on a frozen night in Michigan, 2 people checked into a motel room and never checked out. Michigan, January 1982, the storm had rolled in off Lake Superior, smothering the small town of Ironwood under a sheet of ice and silence. On nights like that, even the police stayed off the roads, except for one place that was still open, the North Pines Motel. The motel sat at the edge of Highway 2, 12 rooms, 1 flickering neon sign, and a reputation for being a place where you could disappear for a while. Sometimes people checked in to hide. Sometimes they checked in to escape. And sometimes they never checked out. That night, 2 guests arrived, Linda Marks and Ray Delgado. She was a 26-year-old waitress from Detroit, running from an abusive boyfriend. He was a truck driver from Ohio, snowed in after his rig jackknifed on the highway. Two strangers. Two lives crossing paths at the wrong time. The motel owner, Carl Benson, gave him keys to room 7 and 8 but by morning, both rooms were empty. What the cleaning lady found at 7:43 a.m. still haunts the few officers who worked the case. The door to room 7 was cracked open. Inside, blood pooled across the carpet, smeared along the bathroom sink, and trailing toward the snow outside. No bodies, just silence. Roommate told the same story. A broken lamp, shattered glass, and a half-smoked cigarette still burning. No footprints leading away, just tire marks frozen in the snow. Investigators believe both Linda and Ray were abducted. Days later, Linda's body was found 12 miles away, frozen under a thin layer of snow near an abandoned shack. She'd been strangled. Her watch had stopped at 1:16 a.m. Ray's body was never found. The suspect list grew quickly. The jealous boyfriend, the motel owner, the random drifter seen that night at a nearby diner. But evidence melted faster than the snow. The police lost Linda's case file in a flooded archive 2 years later. Ray's disappearance wasn't even listed as related. And when Linda's mother called the sheriff's office for updates, she was told, "Ma'am, it's been years. Let it go." But small towns don't forget easily. They just stop talking. A former mate of the North Pines once told a local paper she saw Carl Benson, the motel owner, burning something behind a building the morning after the murders. Old bedsheets, possibly bloodstained. He moved away 6 months later, leaving the motel abandoned. To this day, the North Pine still stands. Rotting wood, empty windows, no trespassing signs faded by time. Locals call it the Motel of Lost Voices. They say if you drive by on a snowy night, you can still see two figures standing at the window of room 7, one tall, one small, staring out, waiting for someone to notice. But no one ever did. No documentaries. No podcasts. Just a small-town legend and two names carved into the back of an old police ledger. Linda Marks, Ray Delgado. One found, one forgotten. Two sides of the same crime. Two faces of a murder no one cared enough to solve. And yet, for every case like this, lost in the snow, lost in time, there's another story where justice found a wrong target. A man imprisoned for decades for a crime he didn't commit, while the real killer walked free. Next, a story about the face of guilt and the shadow of truth. Sometimes murder has two victims, the one who dies and the one who takes the blame. This is a story of Darius Lee, a 23-year-old mechanic from Alabama, convicted in 1998 for the murder of a woman he never met. The victim was Cheryl Denton, a single mother of two, found strangled in her apartment. The crime scene was brutal. Signs of a struggle, a broken lamp, fibers under her nails. Police quickly focused on Darius. He lived 3 blocks away. He had a prior record for auto theft. And, according to one shaky eyewitness, he'd been seen near the building that night. It was enough for the arrest. The trial lasted 6 days. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Verdict, guilty. Sentence, life without parole. What the jury never heard was that the DNA found under Cheryl's fingernails didn't match Darius. It didn't match anyone in the system. But back in 1998, DNA wasn't a priority for small-town cases, especially when the community was angry and desperate for closure. Years later, a new attorney, Rachel Morin, took his case pro bono. She found suppressed evidence. A police report naming another suspect, a man named Kevin Hurst, Cheryl's ex-boyfriend, who had a history of domestic violence. That report had been marked misfiled. By the time Rachel uncovered it, Hurst was dead. A suicide in 2005. He'd left behind a note that read, "The truth was never mine to tell." Rachel filed multiple appeals, but none succeeded. Judges said the evidence was too old. Darius remained in prison for 24 years. He died there in 2022 of pneumonia. His final words were to a prison chaplain, "Tell my mama I didn't do it. I never even knew her name." The state never reopened a case. Cheryl Denton's file remains closed. 2 names, 2 lives, both victims of the same injustice. Pause. In this story, justice had 2 faces, and both were blind. 3 stories, 3 lives, all lost beneath the weight of louder crimes and shorter memories. But for every case we remember, there are 1,000 that vanish, the ones that never trend, never headline, never get solved. Soft piano builds with slow intensity. Somewhere tonight, a file gathers dust. A mother still checks her window when she hears a car. A cold case detective drinks black coffee, staring at a photo from 1993, wondering why no one else cares. Because the truth is, murder has 2 faces, the one we see and the one we choose to forget. And sometimes, when the lights go out and the stories fade, the forgotten ones whisper back. Next time, on Murder Has 2 Faces, we go inside a quiet suburban home where a smiling family hid a decade of darkness until one night, everything changed.